When we open Power BI, we can start by selecting the connector. As we said before in the last lesson, that's the first step in any data analysis process is to connect to the data. But we are going to start by a blank report to introduce the interface of the Power BI desktop application. In Power BI desktop application, we have 4 different views for the current report. So you can display the report view, or the data or table view, the diagram or the model view, or the DAX query view. In the report view, you can switch between the desktop layout and the mobile screen layout. On the right side, we have pane that we use to control our report authorization process. We have data pane, we have visualization pane, we have filter pane by default, and we can use the view tab to hide the filter. Visualization and data, we cannot hide, but we can collapse. The data we're going to use for this lesson are sales transaction. Data is in Excel file. The main file is the sales, and in this file we have information related to some sales transaction. We have product ID as the first column. We have the date of the transaction, branch, city, unit, and price. So we start by selecting the right connector. Because Excel is a very common data source in Microsoft Office environment, we can directly use the Excel workbook under Home, or even import data from Excel in the report, or you can get data from Excel workbook. So I will get data from Excel workbook. Now I'm going to point to the same file, so I will copy the path of the file. Of course, you can use the normal browser to do so. Now we are going to make the navigator. Because sales, the data source is an Excel file, and by nature, Excel file can handle more than one data. So you can have many sheets, you can have many tables, you have many names inside the Excel file. This is why we can see the navigator. Inside my file, we have a sales sheet, which is the whole sheet, and we have the sales table, which is a user-defined table inside my file. I will select the table. Now I have a preview of my table. Now I have 2 options. Load, to load the data to the Power BI, or transform, which will load the data, but will load the data to the Power Query and open the Power Query editor to handle the data. In this example, we don't have any issue to fix. Data is predefined. Data type is accurately selected, so I'm going to load the data. After you load the data, under the data pane, you can find that you have one query now, which is a sales, and inside this query, you can see the field. But before we go to the next step, we have a very important question here. Data from the sales table in my file has been imported inside my model, or just link it to the source, which means if I deleted the Excel file, the whole file, can I still access the data from the Power BI? Do I copy the data inside? Actually, we have 3 different types of handling the data from the data source. By default, data is imported to the Power BI model. So you have a copy of the data inside the model. But we have 2 other ways of handling the data. We have direct query and live connection. and to use any other connectivity type rather than import. It depends on the connector itself. So, for example, in Excel connector, there is no other option. There's only one option, which is import. This is why we cannot see the other option. But if I'm using a SQL database, now I have two different options. We can import the data, or we can direct query without importing the data to the Power BI. But if you use a direct query, you will lose the ability of many functions of creating Power Query modeling because we do not have the data itself, so we cannot transform the data. In import mode, we have full data transformation because we have a copy of the data, so we can handle the data. But in direct query, we cannot. We don't have the data. Data is still on its location. Also, we have live connection. Both in live connection and direct query, there is no data stored, but live connection is for enterprise solutions. This is why it requires Power BI enterprise report server. We have another mode which is called composite. In composite mode, you can import part of the data and direct query other part of the data. For this training, in all scenarios we will import the data. So we are not going to try, at least for level 1, which is this level, we are not going to try direct query or live connection. We are going to try import. So we have full data transformation and full data modeling, which are two of the main topics we are going to cover. So if you import the data, you can create the model and you have the data inside the Power BI file. If you use direct query, you can control the model and create the visuals, but you don't have a copy of the data. It is still in its data source. If you have a live connection, data and the model is coming from the data source, and you only can create the visual inside the Power BI. Now let's listen to Alex while he is trying to repeat and recap the different connectivity types in Power BI.
Power BI offers three main methods for connecting to data. The live connection connects directly to data, such as SQL Server. The direct query connects Power BI directly to a relational database, such as SAP HANA. In import mode, Power BI imports data directly into the Power BI service.